Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Hi, my name is Vivian Aqua, and this is a new episode of Let's Humanize the Workplace. I know normally I don't start like this, or sometimes I do have my guests, but I was just like, no, let's have the guest speakers on while I'm introducing. So today I'm going to have a conversation about the people, planet, profit. But first, I want to take 5 seconds to not 5 seconds, a few seconds to talk about what happened in Colorado Springs. If you haven't heard the news, then please Google it or watch CNN or another platform. But something devastating happened in Colorado Springs where an individual person, um, don't know where his mind was at, but he took the life of so many people and hurt so many people. And I just want to say that whatever reason is behind it, we cannot tolerate that. Wherever that is happening, we cannot tolerate that. And also, another thing that I do want to address that we cannot tolerate is the hate towards people from the LGBT community. Whereas now at the moment, FIFA is playing in Iran, not Iran, sorry, help me.
Qatar.
Qatar, yes, Qatar.
Mhm.
And that is going left. There are certain things that are happening here, and these are the things that we need to remind ourselves when we are collaborating with an organization or working for an organization. What are my values? And do those values match? That's all I'm going to say, because opening up FIFA Gate, that's a whole different conversation of what's good, what's not good, and what we should not do anymore. But where we are right now, we should never ever provide a country that is not honoring all people and give them a place to play football, because the influence of FIFA is too big to let it slide. I know that, this was a decision made in 2010, but from now on, we cannot tolerate this. Also, so many people have died just building new football stadiums, where I'm thinking like there are so many other countries that already have football stadiums, right? When it comes to sustainability. So for those who are football fans, I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but we also need to address it from the people and the planet side as well. So that's those are my 2 cents. It's Thanksgiving week, or AKA Black Friday week, where the whole world is participating in Black Friday. We, even in the Netherlands, it's a pre Black Friday. Let's spend our time and money wisely and think about what we can do for somebody else. If you know a person, or if you can pay it forward for somebody else, it doesn't mean you have to pay for the whole community. It only takes one person to pay it forward. For what can you donate, whether it's your mind, your time, or your energy? What can you do to make the other person's life better? I think that's a valuable gift that we can share, and I hope that you honor that. One last thing, I opened up Pandora's box when I asked a certain question about banning physical contact in the workplace. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna write something about that, because certain words were taken out of context, and I'm gonna share something about it. And also, what's interesting to see the poll that came out. A lot of people were against banning the physical contact, and I am going to demystify what I meant with that. And I'm also going to demystify some of the comments that were shared. So I haven't forgotten about it, but it has been a busy week, a busy month, and I also need to pour tea in my own cup before I'm pouring in somebody else's cup. But enough about me, enough about the world. I want to have a conversation with these three amazing guest speakers who I have on, and I'm going to share their bio. Give me a moment to read out their bio. So, first of all, Taylor Martin. He leads a creative agency that helps companies make new friends by focusing on purpose driven branding and web accessibility. Then we have Keshawn Hughes, who is a neuro leadership coach, consultant, and neuro savvy founder, helping organizations and burnout culture. Burnout, yes. Level up and align with purpose. Then we have Harry Davis, who is a EMA, procurement, logistics, and supply chain professional. He's also a DEI leader focused on building and ERGs to thrive in the workplace. And my name is Vivian Aqua, and I'm the Inclusive Workplace Wellness Advocate. You can look my bio up, you can look everybody's bio up, but let's have that conversation about today, because the question that I always ask to my guest speakers is, why do we need to humanize the workplace? So, Harry.
First of all, thank you, Vivian, for having me, and
Mm-hmm.
alongside amazing Keshawn and Taylor. I think it's very important to humanize the workplace because at the end of the day, most professionals spend a majority of their time, of their
Mm-hmm.
adulthood, in a workspace.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that right from the hiring stage, right from the interview process, right from being hired and being admitted into the workspace, organizations are able to factor in systems, standards, and procedures that would make folks feel comfortable. For example, from a job description, you want to make sure that the job description is very inclusive and then it attracts all folks from all walks of life. Does it attract the folks from the disabled community? Does it attract folks from the LGBTQIA community? Does it attract folks from veterans or folks that have given their lives to support our communities? Does it do that? And then even through the interview process, how do we make sure that there are no biases? How do we make sure the interview panel is constituted of a very diverse personnel so that the process is very fair and people can come into the workspace and enjoy themselves. And so for me, it's very important that I'm able to come into a workspace and be my authentic self. I'm able to come into the workspace because I deserve to be at the table and not because you want to take off a box of being an inclusive organization. But on the flip side, organizations should also be intentional on hiring folks from minority communities and making sure they create a safe space for them to thrive.
On that note, I I did not want to say something about it, but while you were talking about it, creating a safe space for people to be themselves and to thrive, right? I'm directly thinking of ERGs, where there are some companies, some birds, bluebirds, that have canceled employee resource groups, and I'm just thinking like, what is the fear? Because it is known that when you activate and when you implement all the necessary steps that make people to create a thriving employee resource group, it can also add value to the business. It can also add value to the people, their lives, employee engagement, etc., etc., etc. So let's take notes about what not to do. And if you want to Google it, Google ERG Twitter, and I think that you will find enough information about what not to do. And also Google how Twitter was activating ERGs before certain people took over. And that's all I'm gonna share. Okay, Keshawn.
I'm so glad you shared that. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you mentioned that. That's so important.
Mm-hmm.
ERG work, Harry, the work that you're doing within your ERG leadership, it's so necessary
Yeah.
and it's valuable. It's invaluable. And so I'm so glad that you shared that, Vivian. Why is it important for us to humanize the workplace? When I first heard that question, my first thought is well, humans make up the workplace. We're
Mm.
so dynamic. We're so multifaceted. And when allowed to thrive, when actually given resources and supported, and when we feel healthy and comfortable, and when we feel included, as Harry said, in those environments in which we work, we do so much better. We do innovative work. We can do brilliant things. We can
Mm.
operate collectively, holistically. And I want to bring it back to health once again, because that's the foundation of my neurocoaching practice. And when I go into organizations, that's the space that I speak from. And so I feel like healthy people are happier people, they're more productive, and they thrive. And so, in my ideal sentiment, when it comes to humanizing the workplace, I just think about just human thriving, human progress, I think that's why it's so important for us to have these kinds of conversations, have the kind of, once again, resources and support to allow humans to do that. And I think it sounds so easy or simple or like something that shouldn't be questioned, right?
Yeah.
And yet it's questioned all the time.
Hmm.
People have different theories and practices that go against the humanization of the workplace, that are anti-human
Yeah.
and pro-profit.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I love the title, the theme of our conversation today, because it ties it all together, because it should be tied together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While you were mentioning the quote about happy people are more productive
Yeah.
in the Netherlands, and I think it's a common English quote now. I'm not referring to people as cows, but there is a quote saying that happy cows give more milk.
It's true. It's true.
So
It's true.
if you want to be best in the game, gain more profit, gain more, employee branding where your brand is clear, but also the fact that people recognize your company, your organization as a very pleasant company where the customer service is on fleek, everything is doing well, then invest in people, their happiness, right?
Yeah.
Invest in employee engagement. And again, ERGs is a way to do that, as in so many other ways, investing in DEI, for instance. But I'm tooting my own horn, and now I'm passing the horn to Taylor.
Well, I just want to build on what
Yeah.
Harry and Keyshawn said, because they
Hmm.
really covered a lot of great ground there. Just thinking it from a business standpoint, the triple bottom line, people, planet, and profit. I feel like we've just been growing up as humans in terms of business. And it's just now we're learning the lesson, especially with COVID, where we're
Yeah.
learning the lesson that, okay, we really need to take care of our people. We have obviously not been doing that. It has really revealed a lot of um, hidden points that companies didn't realize they had, that were kind of degrading the quality of the company and the workplace and the inclusivity and everything, diversity. And I think that's proven to be a shock to them, a shock to the system, shock to business, because now people are leaving. They're
Yeah.
great resignation,
Hmm.
which is great. I really think it's great, because it is making companies stand back and go, what are we
Yeah.
doing wrong here? And they're going to have to, if they want to stay, afloat, and they want to prosper in the future, they have to take action. And I think everything that Harry and Keyshawn has said, I think that is exactly what we need to do. And, from my point of view, my perspective, I always see the triple bottom line, the people, planet, profit, as a three-legged stool. If you don't have one of those,
Yeah.
legs working,
Ooh.
it's going to collapse over.
Ooh.
And that's just something that the way I see it. And so now I think it's a coming of age. Like, we have finally been forced as a people to realize the people component of business and how incredibly valuable it is for the progress of any company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't condone what is happening lately at museums, right? Where
Oh,
environmentalists are protesting, but then again, they are getting our attention where we need to invest in the future. We need to invest in sustainability. And also, I know that given where we are at right now, especially with the war in Ukraine, the war between Russia and the whole world, it's challenging. But then again, the world made commitments. The world made commitments when it comes to sustainability. The world made commitments to do better. And war or no war, we need to honor that as well, as much as we can, because we have to leave the planet better,
Yeah.
so much better than we found it. And unfortunately now, it seems like we are seeking another planet to destroy, but that's a whole nother thing.
hmm.
I will stay here. I will stay here on the earth. I see Prince. Prince has shared something
Yeah.
poignant submissions. Great conversation so far. Thank you, Prince, for joining this conversation and going into the main topic of this conversation. So let's start with you, Keshawn. Why is it important to amplify people, planet, profit from your perspective?
I just love something that Taylor said, is he mentioned shock, and
Mm,
um, awakening, I think, or that's
Mhm.
the word that came to mind. As people, we're coming to ourselves. We had a realization, we're having realizations that we didn't have before, because
Yeah.
there were certain ways that we looked at work, productivity, being extremely productivity oriented.
Yep.
There was one bottom line. And I love how he mentioned the three-legged stool of the bottom line, how it does include people and planet. And also, Vivian, you mentioned something about sustainability. The Neuro Leadership Institute, one that I follow for information and insights and trends, asked us to focus on regenerative practices.
Mhm.
So beyond sustainability, just one step further, how can we create and sustain processes, ideas, and implement ways of thinking, ways of practicing work, ways of showing up to work that are regenerative, that are cyclical, that are not just once we get to that point of sustainability, there's a drop off. We want something
Mhm.
to then drop off and rebound, right? So just think about nature. There are seasons. Every year we go through the same cycle of seasons. How can we cycle different processes in the way we bring people in, how we recruit and retain employees? And how can we think about it from a lifelong stance? How can we have these employees then have children who become employees even?
Mhm.
There are companies that do that. And so that's something that I have in mind when I think about amplifying people, planet, and profit, is the regenerative nature just of humanity. We're regenerative ourselves as biosystems, right? We reproduce, we carry on, we move forward. So I think about it in that stance when I think about legacy, strategic moves that are long standing and last beyond me, beyond my lifetime, into my children's lifetime. How can we think from that lens, from that space?
I love that. I love that. And I'm gonna pass the mic to Taylor because I'm also curious about your insights, Taylor.
Yeah, so Keyshawn nailed the word that I like to use more than sustainability is regenerative,
Mhm.
because I feel like we've already passed the Rubicon here. We
Mhm.
need to stop using sustainability and start using regenerative, because
Mhm.
everything you just said is exactly how we need to start thinking, not just net zero, net positive,
Mhm.
and how we can reverse the problems and things that we've done to our planet. Yeah, I think you're on mute there, Keyshawn.
I tend to be a little loud. I in that room where Vivian first met me, and so
Yeah.
I mute myself because I don't want to disrupt. I don't want to. Yes,
Mm,
yes, that reverse the
Yeah.
problems we
Yeah.
started.
yeah.
I love that language. Yes.
Yeah, but just to get to the heart of her question,
Mhm.
to amplify, my mind
Mhm.
goes to three things. One, making better decisions. Better decisions that are more inclusive for people, more diverse for people, and more open and compelling for people to work at a place, more purpose-driven environment. And then number two, get your messaging down really well with your purpose-driven branding in terms of these decisions that you are making to help out people and planet. And then the third thing is to continually get that message out there and keep growing it and
Yeah.
growing it and growing it, because you need to be the leader for the next company who's going to try to compete against you. They need to compete against you in this space as well. So if you have a company that's firing on all cylinders and you are making a wonderful, environment for people to work at, and it's empowering to work there, it's a purpose-driven place, you're going to get better product, you're going to get a better service, you're going to get a
Mhm.
better outcome for your business. And then the sustainability part is the right thing to do in so many ways. We don't need to get into the details. And then the profit part will just come natural into that process, because you're not going to lose sight of the profit angle.
What I'm getting out of what you just shared right now, Taylor, is transparency. Share
Yeah.
where you are at, share what your ambitions are, and also share what you have done so that people know what steps have taken, because there's so much greenwashing, pinkwashing,
Mm.
DEI washing, all the washing that is there available, whilst nobody is sharing accountability, nobody is sharing the tracks, or not that many people are sharing accountability yet. They all have their reports, their CSR, and all the other reports that this is what we are committed to, and we signed this, but where is the accountability? So I want to see more accountability, transparency, and be
Mm.
open to where you are at.
Well said.
Harry.
Yeah, I think I'll take a little detour from here.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you just mentioned, Vivian, it's important that organizations would come together, because when it comes to a DEI perspective or amplifying people, planet, and profit, what can we mobilize ourselves together and
Mm-hmm.
work together for the better good of the world? And so it comes to the point where we maybe compete on the marketing front, etc. But then can we come together to see how we can build a robust system that would be able to support our people, the planet, and the profit? Now, I'm a procurement professional. And so now we are at the point where when we go out there to source, we are thinking about who are our vendors that we need to source from. We are thinking about supplier diversity. Are we reaching out
Mm-hmm.
to folks that, minority owned businesses, women owned businesses? And so now, even from a procurement perspective, we are being very intentional about giving a percentage of our spend to specific organizations or minority organizations, so we can uplift those communities up. And when I think about it, the planet, of course, like you mentioned, we're trying to move from the sustainable timelines to the regenerative, which is actually great. But it's also very important to be cognizant of the fact that we need to hold organizations accountable.
Mm-hmm.
For example,
Mm.
I'm from Africa. I'm from Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
where Ivory Coast and Ghana produce 70% of world cocoa, but we still
Mm.
have children who are not going to school, who are 10-year-olds and below,
Mm.
going out there to harvest cocoa. And so,
Yeah.
can we hold the global organizations accountable to say, yes, we've all signed to fair practice and buying from a fair point of view, but how do we ensure that we are holding them accountable? Because they just go somewhere and sign all these agreements, but then who is holding them accountable, like Vivian
Mm.
said? And then finally, also from a minority perspective, from an African perspective, I'm thinking about STEM. How do we make
Mm-hmm.
sure a part of our profit, we are intentional about giving opportunities to women in science, women in
Yeah.
mathematics? We're giving opportunities to disabled folks. We're giving opportunities to all these minorities, investing into research and development into how we can cater for the minorities within the workspace, so that they could come in there, the ergonomics from their seating to their computing, everything. Really, we are investing money to be able to amplify the folks that work for us. So, like Taylor mentioned, the three are interwoven, and failure of one is failure of the remaining two.
Mm.
So it's
Mm.
very important.
Well said, Harry.
Very good.
You are all making it hard for me to facilitate the conversation, because I'm sitting here, I'm just like, oh, I'm hearing so many golden nuggets yet again, so many comments. So I'm just gonna marinate on what everybody's sharing, and in the meantime I will share the comments from people. So thank you, digital marketing, for sharing. Nice topic, great contribution. And also somebody from LinkedIn, I don't always see the names, but I'll share it out loud. Sustainability shouldn't be our goal. It's all about sustaining a broken system. Regeneration is more powerful to drive meaningful change. Thank you. Regeneration and leaving a legacy. Deep thoughts. Thank you, Franklin. And also another one. Thanks for this important conversation. And Franklin is saying, well said, Harry. Let's hold these global organizations accountable, but we must
Mm.
start with our own people as well. Yes. It
Mhm.
starts from within.
Yeah.
Starts
Yeah.
from within.
Mhm.
Because we can point our fingers to the managers, to the leaders, but then again, we also have to be real and look ourselves in the mirror. What are we doing? Right? In the beginning, I shared, if there's one thing that you can do for somebody else, we don't have to buy something, but we can share knowledge, we can share tips, we can open doors for people, become sponsors. That will be such a meaningful way, especially for those who just lost their job. What can you do to amplify them so that they can enter in the room as well? And going into the next conversation, yes, Keshawn is back. Let me see. Going to the next topic. So, Taylor, how
Mm.
can organizations, leaders, employees benefit from amplifying P3?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
touches on a lot of this.
Yeah.
But I keep going back to purpose,
Mm.
because if you have a sense of purpose for your company, like let's just say your company is doing everything environmentally sound and you're focused on regenerative, aspects of how your business, affects the planet, and then maybe
Mm-hmm.
more so, um, people are going to know that
Yeah.
in the employees are going to know this, and they're going to know that their workspace does that. And then the people aspect of it, like we've been talking about, being able to live and or work and live and operate and commingle in a workspace that you feel, very happy and proud to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, a paycheck is one thing, but it's not everything. You
Yes.
get your paycheck, but if you are really feeling passionate and moved by what your company does, and you understand the purpose of the company is driven to help humanity in whatever way that their business operates, I feel like that's the ultimate goal.
Mm, mm.
Yes.
No words. That's it. That's it. That's I
Mhm.
have no words. The only thing that I can
Oh.
say is that, and also another thing, because you're mentioning something about the purpose of the organization, but then again, as an individual, you also have a purpose. Your
Mhm.
team has
Mm.
a purpose, right? So
Mhm.
find a way to connect the P3 with your personal purpose and the purpose of an organization. Then you are getting the best of the best, and of also your team purpose as well, because when we only focus on the organization, it feels like we are not asking the challenging the individuals to align their purpose to the organization, to the team as well.
Mm.
Harry.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I've worked in an organization where employees were tasked with, um, selecting a specific organization around sustainability or
Mm-hmm.
green or CO2 emissions, etc. And then the organization was going to match the contributions that the
Mm.
employees were going to give or contribute to those organizations. So this is how business leaders can utilize their workspace. And I'm talking from the ERG perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And having worked within Uber, I could cite an example where Black at Uber was able to, especially during the COVID era, was able to partner with leadership and speak about specific organizations that Uber could invest into to
Yeah.
be able to have some of these most difficult conversations. And a typical example also is around when the Palestinian-Israeli war occurred.
Yeah.
And it was a heated moment because we had the Jewish community and then we had the Muslim community as well. And so we were all able to lean into our employee resource group to say, which organizations do you know within your community would we
Mm-hmm.
be able to tap into to be able to have some of these conversations with you because
Yeah.
the organization sees you, we feel you, and we want to support you in this time of need. And so this is a way that organizations can give power and give and trust their employee resource groups or minority communities within the workspace to be able to leverage their connections and network and support them amplify this. And finally, when it comes even into our profits, also leaning into these communities to say, we formed a whole new supplier diversity department. Can you reach out to businesses, small organizations within your community that you know, share with them that this is what Uber is doing. We want them to register, and then we want to give a percentage of our spend to them. And
Yeah.
so leveraging your people and tapping into them and letting them know that we are willing to support you. We will take a step back, but take ownership in being able to reach out to specific folks in your community so that we could amplify and all support each other is one thing that organizations can leverage so that we can amplify the P3 as a whole.
Yeah, I love that. I do, as a minority business owner, I do sometimes I'm going to share something from my perspective, right? Because when collaborating with a big company, it might feel like David versus Goliath, where sometimes you end up lost in a maze. So if there is a way to mentor, or is there a way to coach the small businesses so that they can collaborate with you or collaborate with different businesses as well, look into that as well. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but look into that as well, because it might be that from their end, from their perspective, right, dealing with a huge client, a big client can activate a fight or flight or freeze mechanism where they
Mhm.
want to do something, but they are frozen or they get lost in all these, procurement procedures that are happening, where sometimes the payment terms are not equitable, but that's a whole
Mhm.
nother conversation that I'm not gonna have here. But I felt the need to
Worth
share
mentioning.
something about it, not on behalf of
Mm.
myself, but also on behalf of, all the other small business owners as well. Just
Yeah.
just leaving it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt
Kashawn.
important. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for the small business owners. So much
Mhm.
of what everyone has shared has resonated with me. I'm over here taking notes.
Mhm.
Another word that was used was transparency becoming contagious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I think, I don't know, I wrote down the word trans
Yeah.
or contagious,
Yeah.
because as humans, when we align our
Mhm.
words and our actions with one another and we
Yeah.
share those perspectives, neurologically, we become on the same wavelength, the same frequency.
Yeah.
Mm.
That is how collective contagion of good things, of good policies, of
So
health.
what you're saying is we need more transparency. We need more of that so that our brains can adopt everything. Is that
I
what you're
would
saying?
I think I am. Is that what you heard, Vivian? Is that what you heard? If it is, that's what I said, right? Yes. It's so helpful. It's so important. And it does bring about that fight, flight, freeze response, because if we're receiving new information that we're not quite familiar with, our brains and our nervous
Mhm.
systems can go into that
Yeah.
space. If we're hearing about information that can seem too big to tackle, how can I
Mm.
do this alone or as one organization or as
Yeah.
one team? We can go into that response as well. But if we do so together, collectively, understanding that when we do have perspective sharing, when we do share various perspectives, it can take more time to move forward. But research shows that the solutions that are found are more innovative, they're more
Mhm.
profitable. So we can get so caught up in wanting to do things fast, quickly, wanting to do what's familiar, once again, to do what we've done before, to at
Yeah.
least get
Mhm.
to the space of sustainability. But if we want to be regenerative, there will be some pauses. There will be times when we move fast and slow.
Yeah.
And so really getting comfortable with the slow seasons and the slow periods where we might feel stuck, but being willing to move beyond that, doing the work we have to do as individual leaders, the self-care work, the mind orientation work, the mindset work, continuing moving conversations forward, we can get to those ultimate goals. We can get to those strategic goals. It absolutely is possible.
While you were saying that, it made me think of the seasons, right? We are the only people that are not slowing down. All animals are doing a winter sleep or slowing down. Even the trees are slowing down. Even our seasons are slowing down.
Yes.
Why is it that we humans think
Mm,
that we always have a Duracell enduring batteries where we keep going on and on and on and on and on and on and on,
yes.
and not taking the
And
time to
pause. Yeah.
pause? So the last few weeks I am holding myself accountable, and when I'm pausing, that means sometimes I cannot react to a LinkedIn message or a post.
Mm.
um I need to, again, fill my cup. I need to fill my cup before I pour, before I share my tea with other people. And especially the work that we're doing, especially the challenges that we are facing right now. And also, a lot of people are struggling at the
Mhm.
moment right now for different reasons. We need to take the time and reflect. We need to take the time and reflect, because before the pandemic, we were going and going and going and going without taking that pause. And why not take the time and see ourselves as the seasons, where in the winter you do things a little bit slower, or calculate that recharge moment where instead of taking 2 days, you're taking maybe an extra day to fill your cup, and really fill your cup, not work, fill your cup. That's it.
It definitely takes learning.
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself. I
Mm-hmm.
did not grow up in an environment where I had that modeled for me. I had
Mm.
hard work ethic
Mm.
modeled for me, and that is what
Yeah.
was prized, and that is what was aligned with achievement. It was rewarded. It was
Yeah.
rewarded. And I just think once again about neuroscience, and our brains are so simple in the fact that we do what we get rewarded to do, even if
Mm,
it's not in alignment with our goals. Even as we're changing, we're aging, things they don't work the way they used to. Okay.
mm,
We still have the expectation, we still have the memory of how we used to be, and we want to continue and move that forward without making any changes in our environment, any changes in what we take in, information or otherwise. But it's very important to see ourselves as one with nature, as opposed to above it, controlling it, right?
yeah,
We
yeah,
are it, we are nature.
yeah.
And so
Mm.
I think like in human history, I'm thinking about the different ages of work, industrialization, and then the technical age, and now we're in this AI age, right? So we're moving forward, we're evolving when it comes to the way we think of that. How are we evolving our own personal systems, our own
Mm,
hardware and software? I
yeah,
think to be in alignment with that is to be it's the best, it's to our best interest, both
yeah,
personally and collectively.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I totally love that. I'm gonna have a peek to see if there are any comments. I see Prince sharing there has to be a stronger collaboration between research, academia, and industry. Yes,
I like
yes,
that.
yes, yes. Thank you, Prince. And also regarding the next question,
Mm.
um, is there an example that you can share? First of all, did everybody answer the previous question just out of
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah? Okay.
You're good. You're good.
I got lost a little bit. Can you share an example of your organization or a client that you are working with that is putting, the P3 first? So I'll start with you, Keshawn. I think you're up. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for this question. It was really good. It had me think about what can I share, because there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
coaching client privilege. But I
Mm-hmm.
think
I get it.
this personally, I would say, impacted me. Just having these conversations, it's an honor for me to sit with leaders and hear about their vulnerabilities and the
Mm-hmm.
challenges that they're working through. And the foundation of my practice is co-creative. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm there as an active listener. I'm there as a person who has had my own experiences. I can share from that space, but I'm there to mostly listen more so than talk. And so I think just as a leadership skill, that is one that I think a lot of leaders could benefit from there. But so how putting
Yes.
planet profit first, I think having a conversation with one recent client, he had some questions about what he should do next, his next role in leadership, what he should do within the organization, what kind of impact does he see himself making. And through our dialogue and our conversation, he came to the realization that whatever decision I make that's best for me and my health will be best for the organization. He was able to tie those two things together as an individual, as a leader. And so when leaders go into their meetings, into strategy sessions, planning sessions with that in mind, their own health benefit and the health benefit of the teams, the clients, the stakeholders, it can go outward from there. I think decisions that are made tend to be healthier, better for the planet, more
Mm-hmm.
regenerative, all the things that we're talking about, and ultimately more profitable, because you don't want to have a leader who is within a company who is either burned out, unmotivated, toxic in any kind of way, because we do lead from the inside out. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that is what I think of when I think about my company. Examples from my company is just coaching with leaders, having them have that own reflection for themselves of how can I be the healthiest, best self? How can I be the most inclusive leader I possibly can be? And then seeing how that reverberates outward in policies that are made, in products that are sold, and so on and so forth.
I love what you shared about leaders, but also in the conversation that I am having with leaders is sometimes leading can be lonely, right?
Mm.
So sharing that vulnerability is not always a given,
That's right.
but if you want to unlock vulnerability, you have to share some vulnerability of yourself. And also it can amplify trust and it can amplify
Mm.
the employee
Oh, yeah.
engagement within your team where you want everybody to give 200% for your organization. But how can you do that if you are activating a certain, dinosaur leadership style, which what you're now seeing is not working, and rather people are allergic to that style. So I'm not saying that a certain company is going to not exist anymore, but I am watching it closely and seeing how things are progressing, because
Mm.
what is being shared at the moment right now is what not to do. And we need more of what to do better, and how can we evolve and reflect and learn from that and do better, and realize that a little bit of empathy regarding the leaders. I understand you. Your plate is over full,
Yeah.
but you can also share the plate, share the mic, and have this conversation with a confidant like a coach. That's all I'm saying, and invest in that as well. Yeah, Harry. Oh, let me. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think the most organization that I thrived well in my
Mm-hmm.
DEI expertise is still Uber.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the privilege of working with our CEO because once a month, Dara met one ERG. So we had 12 ERGs, and once a month, he met the leadership of the ERG.
Yeah.
Now, generally, the executives of Uber, their bonuses were tied to the success of our diversity, equity, and
Okay.
inclusion
Okay.
plan.
Okay. Okay. Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute, because wait a minute, because
Yes.
that's not. It's not a given that
Yeah.
a company connects their DEI goals
That's right.
Yeah.
to leadership
True.
Yeah.
performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
So,
it was,
can you
it
can
was a
you
big
repeat
bold
that again?
bet.
Just repeat it again for those who haven't heard, because
The
this.
bonuses of the executives were
Mm,
tied to the success of DEI.
Mhm.
mm,
And one of Uber's belief or value was we make big, bold bets.
Ah,
And so this was a very big, bold
Mm.
bet
yeah.
considering where Uber had come from historically. And
yeah.
so leadership saying that we want to own this. The success of DEI is tied to our performance bonuses. And so the CEO meets the ERG leadership, one ERG leadership, once a month with our chief HR officer. And of course, because I was a lead for ERGs, I was able to sit in some of these conversations. And this is where you're able to see how people can come across and share their vulnerability. The day Dara said he had a son, he had a child who was part of the LGBTQIA
Yeah.
community. And so
Yeah.
he could relate to what was
Yeah.
happening. And so you think about when ERGs come and say that, listen, we have X% of Black leaders. And so we think that we need to have a pipeline of Black
Yeah.
talents. We've already spoken to McKinsey. They've got a 6 month program that trains Black folks and then gets them ready for leadership roles. The ERG had already done their research and everything. They came to the CEO with their findings. We need your support on ABC. And so Dara took ownership and says, this I relegate it to the chief HR officer. I want you to be the
Mm-hmm.
sponsor this program for the ERG. And
Yeah.
then when you think about some other plans around, trying to, in 2025 onwards, we are thinking of electric vehicles. We are thinking of alternative sources of fueled vehicles so that we're moving away from the typical traditional ones that
Mm-hmm.
cause CO2 emissions, etc. So I feel like we are getting there. Organizations or leadership are taking ownership, but it's also the responsibility of members or
Yeah.
employees holding them accountable to say, you promised A, B, C. What is the plan? What is the support? What support do we get from you around the plan? And so for me, I was very excited when I saw that a CEO had taken such a stance to support the ERG into becoming better. And as an employee, to be able to have met the CEO once every month with the different ERG who were at different maturity levels, who were needing different things. Because the women ERG was very matured, the Black ERG was very matured, but the immigrants ERG, the disabled ERG, they
Yeah.
are less matured. And so
Mm.
their needs are different. But then
Yeah.
saying that you needed a different set of things for your ERG for you to mature to the point of the other ERGs, and I'm willing to support you. And so all the executives were executive sponsors of ERGs. So the VPs, etc., one VP is an executive sponsor of an ERG. The success of the ERG is tied to you as a VP. If you don't help them build your strategy, sorry, they fail, you fail. And I think that was one of the most incredible experiences for me whilst I worked within Uber.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
a great story.
It is.
And kudos, and I think I need to give a shout out to the head of DEI for Uber, Bo Young, amazing. My
Yeah.
manager, Alex, amazing folks, and you're doing great
Okay,
stuff.
I have to do a disclaimer. This podcast is not sponsored by. It can be though.
It can be.
Very good.
No, but besides everything that you shared, wow and wow and wow and
Yeah.
wow and wow, and we need more of this. Like
Do.
I shared
Mm.
before, we need more of these good examples so
Yeah.
that people can learn and do better.
Mm-hmm.
However, the conversations in Uber is an international company, and I know that they are a, a lot further than the Dutch companies that I sometimes collaborate with. I can see the resemblance with the international companies that I work with, but however, I'm based in the Netherlands, and I sometimes have to, help out the Dutch companies where we are just getting started. So for those who are looking at best practices,
Mm-hmm.
let's set this as a best practice example where this is the way that we want to head
Mm-hmm.
5 years, 10 years, or 15 years from now, but at least we are making a decision that this is where we want to go.
Yeah.
Yes. Taylor.
Yeah. You know, we've covered some good ground here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on a success story. At least I think of it as a success story.
Yeah, yeah.
One of my clients, they've been growing their business, every year exponentially. They made it to Inc. 500 and they were doing just exceptionally well. And, they keep speaking to a larger audience during conferences across the United
Mhm.
States. It's a nationwide company here in the United States. And they're basically a professional services company. But the CEO he was going to speak at this conference with all these people. And he didn't speak about what they did as a service. He
Mhm.
spent his whole time speaking about how their mission is to build the future leaders of tomorrow,
Mm.
which has nothing to do with their
Yeah.
business services, but that is their mission to create business leaders of the future. And in so doing, they are following all these wonderful, ideas and rules that we've been talking about, and sustainability, and being reactive and community focused, always giving back to their communities in which they serve all across the United States. And the CEO just went up there and just told that story, did not talk about the company in terms of what the services they do, because it's kind of easy to understand what they do. He probably only spent 15 seconds talking that, but he spent the rest of his time talking about all these things. And he felt good and he was very passionate about saying it. But within the next month, he had garnered some of the largest accounts from the audience that the company's ever had. And that's because they aligned. These big brands
Yeah.
heard this statement and said, you know what? That is us. So we are going to align with them and we are going to work with them, and they are going to be our new professional services company to manage this part of our business. So that was a huge success story, as far as I'm concerned, because now big brands are taking notice of things like this and they're willing to take action on it. So
Yeah.
I just love that story.
It's an amazing story. And while you were talking about it, it reminded me so much of Maya Angelou's quote where people don't, take into account what you do or what you say, how you make them feel. That is so much important. I know that this is not the literal quote that she mentioned, but it's something in the light of this. And um when it comes to branding, when it comes to you as an individual or as a company, um it's so important to know where you stand for, what your purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
My purpose, and I'll give everybody the chance to share their my purpose is I want to be able to plant seeds so that my son, who is not here, sometimes he comes here, but he's 9 at the moment, he's sleeping. I want to do my utmost best to invest in his future and the
mm,
generation of his generation and after that, so that I did my best to
Mm-hmm.
mm.
do better, because I
Yeah.
know how it felt when the workplaces weren't inclusive, where the
Mm,
workplaces were hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want him to go through that. I don't want to make it an emotional
Oh.
thing, but this is my purpose. And I'm curious about all of your purposes. Thank you, Taylor, for opening up the purpose circle.
You bet.
Well, maybe I'd go first with the
Yeah.
purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I think before we started, I was sharing about how I started this podcast thing around
Yeah.
curating series, etc. So I realized that I haven't been hired from Africa and relocated to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
I was black, I was an immigrant, and so to work within an organization where I felt belonged to was great. But I also realized that back home we have smart, intelligent folks who
Yeah.
do not get the right opportunity to thrive. And
Mm.
so in my little corner, I have taken it upon myself to say that how do I share my experiences, my lived experiences, basically, so that folks who are because back in Africa, I am majority because everybody looks like me. But in Europe, I am minority. So
Mm-hmm.
how do I reach out to folks who look like me, who look up to me, who feel like they want to be in the position or they want to strive and get to the top like I
Yeah.
am, to be able to go through that journey? It starts with having the right resume for which a hiring manager would want to talk to the person behind the resume. And so I've taken it upon myself that I'll be a shadow HR, support folks, prepare them for interviews,
Mm.
get your CVs right.
Yeah.
How do you conduct yourself so that even though the process may not be fair or there may be biases, you are chosen not based on the fact that you're a minority, but based on the fact that you deserve a seat at the table because you have what it takes to be on the table. So maybe my purpose is now giving back to my fellow African brothers, not necessarily my Ghanaian folks, but say that
Okay,
how
what
can I
about the
share my
sisters and what
experience?
about the other people?
So yeah, it's inclusive of sisters, brothers, everybody in the sphere.
I feel excluded.
Brothers and sisters, obviously. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, I've
Mm-hmm.
supported many folks get jobs right from the interview
Yeah,
process where I
true.
groomed them and everything, and they reach out to me and said, "Harry, I got the job," and it
Yeah,
feels fulfilling. You know, although I don't think I will be a successful HR person, I love my procurement and supply chain profession, but I think that I could do a little bit to push the next generations and support
exactly.
them out there. That's my purpose.
Thank
I
you.
just want to say
Thank
so. I
you.
just want to say something about what Harry just said because I was having this conversation just the other day about mentorship,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we just don't do that enough anymore. It's just
yeah,
because
yeah.
we're just so inundated with phone calls, emails,
Mhm.
request items that we don't invest in mentoring, and that is what Harry's doing, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
I
we
do.
need more mentors. We need more sponsors as
Absolutely.
well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sponsors. Taylor, you opened the purpose chain. So where you're at?
You know, I always think about that Simon Sinek video where he talks
Mhm.
about Apple and they do it because of the why,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's what opened the door for me. I don't know how long ago, a decade plus, ago, but it made me realize if we can do that, if we can work in a place that has a sense of purpose, what we've been talking about throughout this conversation is really about a quality of life.
Yeah.
Because you
Mm.
Yeah.
can go to
Yeah.
work and you can have a great feeling, you can bring that wonderful feeling home.
Mhm.
And then you can share that wonderful feeling with your family. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like you go to a work and you drudge it and then you come home
Mhm.
and bring that drudgery with you
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
give that to your family. You're going to work and you're being empowered and uplifted, you're learning, you're exploring, you're growing, and then you bring that energy home. So to me, it all comes back to, quality of life because that's like a
yeah.
full circle.
So good.
That's the formula.
Yeah.
Quality of life should
Yeah.
be the end goal in everything that we're doing. So
Yeah.
love it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Keshawn.
Oh, I love this question.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, so many good nuggets. I'm feeling fueled and purposeful just in hearing all of your purpose
Mhm,
that you're
mhm,
sharing. It's so inspirational. For me, I think of when I think of that question, what is purpose? I think about a new friend that I have who's in the coaching community, and she has a company called the Purpose Equation. So her
mhm,
work is to help people find their purpose. And I
Mhm.
attended one of her talks, and she said, purpose is who we are. We
mm,
are purpose. So even beyond our doing, we be purpose, right?
Yeah.
Our being is purpose. And something that I've utilized, and I heard from a coach that I hired to help coach me, was that coaching or purpose is a feeling. Purpose is a feeling. And so, as someone who was once burned out, as someone who was extremely doing oriented, achievement oriented, and disconnected from my feeling self, I now see that purpose for me is connecting and building connections and feeling connected in conversations, in environments, in situations, in my community, in my household. I want to feel a sense of connection with myself, and I would love to feel a sense of connection with others. So
Yeah.
having these kinds of aligned conversations to me is me fulfilling my purpose, me being my
Yeah.
purpose, and feeling that sense of connection for me is everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I do agree.
Okay, glad to get the awesome sign. I'm so glad I got that. Thank you. That's so good.
This conversation, like I said, it's sometimes so challenging to be a moderator, facilitator, but today, I mean, it's the end of my day,
Mm,
whereas I should be tired, but I'm getting energy out of this conversation. So
Yeah.
thank you
me.
all. And I see Franklin sharing purpose-driven life, mentorship, start with the why. It gets better and better, right?
Yeah.
It gets better and better. Yes. I believe so
Mm,
too. But we have come to the end, and we
Already?
have,
mm.
yeah, I know. We have to have a conversation about what your wish is. I know we are at the end of 2022, and 2025 is almost like 2+ years away,
Yeah.
but we can dream and we can wish and we can hope. So I'll start with Harry.
Well, for me, the purpose, what I'm looking for 2025,
Mm-hmm.
lots of empathy.
Mm,
Yeah, a lot of times we are just too
Mm.
close and not giving
yeah.
enough space and room to observe or give people the chance. And so I think a lot of empathy, and then
Mm-hmm.
also maybe a lot of accountability. And so
Mm-hmm.
not just the talk, but walking the talk. And then when we come to the end of the year, when organizations come with their, this is our DEI vision for 2025, or this is our annual reports, you want to see the progress from what was
Yeah.
a year in retrospect, what
Yeah.
happened in the year before,
Yeah.
what have we been able to achieve now, and where are we going to? So right from leadership, organizations, a lot of empathy, and a lot of holding ourselves accountable and doing better and better all the time.
Mm,
Love that.
mhm.
Taylor.
For 2025 and beyond, I want to see more. I want to see more transparency in business. I
Mm-hmm.
want to see more, better policies put in place for DEI. And I want to see better and more messaging from companies on the choices that they're making, the decisions they make for regenerative design and for DEI, for People Planet. And they can talk about their profit. They're going to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to see more of that. As I mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation, I feel like as humans, we've been growing up and we've been learning our lessons. And now I feel like it's painting a more holistic full circle. And if we can just get this DEI part, and this people angle
Yeah.
really addressed, and the sustainability one, of course, obviously, I feel like we're just going to be in such a better place. But we have to start nailing down, guide rails and posts to keep companies in line with that type of thinking. And, everything we do, we are voting for companies like this. But every dollar you spend, that is a vote for that company to flourish. So
Mm,
if you're putting your money, if you're putting your vote towards something, you're spending your money on something that is creating positive change in the world, I commend you. If you're not, change.
mm.
That's an interesting twist on what you are sharing right now, where we have power, we have money. So if
Mm,
we don't like something, don't buy it anymore. Don't stand
that's
behind
right.
it anymore. And I get that. I get that. Thank you, Taylor.
My pleasure.
Deshaun.
Ooh, okay, 2025.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of any year in the future, I think of my daughter. She'll be 9 years old in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
And I think about children. I think about,
Mm.
it can sound so cliche, but children are our future.
Yeah.
I would love to see culture shifting and bending towards more health,
Yeah.
love, more empathy, more regenerative practices and habits as individuals and as organizations.
Yeah.
I'd love to see some evidence of that. Something that I cite a lot, I talk about my own burnout journey. I support and coach people
Mm,
who are burned out. Burnout rates are astronomical right now
Yeah.
worldwide. And in 2019, the World Health Organization declared burnout a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
So I would love to see some numbers related to burnout going in the right direction,
Yeah.
going down. So that would make me feel, because by then it would have been 6 years since that study had been published. Now companies know about it. The word is used every day on social media. I can't
yeah.
log into any channel without seeing it mentioned. I would love to see some evidence of those numbers shifting in a better direction. I would
Yeah.
love to see that. That would be one change I would hope to see.
I love every word that was being
Oh,
shared
dear.
during this conversation. So,
Yes.
like I said, it was very challenging to have this conversation and lead it, facilitate it whilst being, whilst listening. But this has been, let's say, my top one of my top 5 conversations, and it really filled my cup. I'm so glad that Taylor, you invited me to have that conversation because your podcast led to the creation of this, and you were thinking about why does she want to interview me. I hope that by now that you have an answer and that you were needed for this conversation. We need to have more of these conversations in the
Yes,
workplace and have this heart to heart honest have to have this honest
that's
conversation with
awesome.
you.
That's awesome.
Because
Mm,
this is what happens when you put 4 people together where they are speaking up about their perspective on people, planet,
mm,
profit. And
Yeah.
when we marinate, when we put everything together, we can definitely create an action board where we can all work towards to. Not
Mhm.
saying that everything can be checked off, but at least we are making a very conscious decision about this is the
mm,
action that we are taking. We are heading this way and we are being transparent about it. And next year, that's what we are aiming for. All we can do is be transparent and share our actions and also look back and reflect from the lessons that we have learned because we can run,
mhm,
but it's also needed as a Ghanaian proverb, Sankofa, where you go back and fetch and learn from that. Use that as a reflection as well. So thank you everybody for watching
That
Let's
gave me
Humanize
chills.
the
I love it.
Workplace.
Yes.
And until next time, bye everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. This was wonderful. So good.